Jonathan, you have any reactions to Roosevelt and Zena? Especially, I like the phrase this non-coercive shaping of desire. Is that a good substitute, more positive sounding substitute for shame?
Well, I think that I mean I have a few thoughts on this. One has to do with discipline, your characterization. I do think all three books are about discipline, and in some ways, Roosevelt's and Zena's are in a way more attracted to what I call asceticism than mine is. Roosevelt with Gandhi, but he's also attracted to some other ascetics. I remember he says in his book that Augustine is the type of person who has extraordinarily, sort of uncommonly strong desires, right? So part of his work is to reorient those desires, just as I think Roosevelt suggests, but part of it is there's a discipline involved. He's still looking over his shoulder, even when he's confident he's saved, worrying about whether his desire to eat something is a form of gluttony that's going to throw him off track. There's self-discipline, I think, in all of these works. As for shame, I certainly agree with Zena, right? That sense that wagging your finger at students probably isn't going to work. And furthermore, that you do need to present something that's appealing, right? And in some ways, I wish I'd emphasized that more in my book. I talked about it a little bit, but I think that you do have to show that liberal education is, it can be joyful. It is painful, but it can be a joy as well. And that's part of what we do. At the same time, I agree with what Roosevelt said. We're moved by shame. It's not as if you're creating shame, right? There's another structure of shame that you're working against, right? It's shameful not to be clever, honorable to be clever. It's shameful to care too much about books, honorable not to care about them. It's shameful to think when urgent action is needed, honorable not to think and to do instead. And so you can't beat something with nothing. You need a different structure of pride and shame. And sometimes that's by example. Socrates didn't spend a ton of time wagging his finger at people, though I think he did probably do some of that. But Roosevelt quotes him pretty early in the book. He talks about how his students are moved by Socrates, and the quote he gives is, "Aren't you ashamed?" Yeah. And the shame has to do with something that Zena talks about a lot in her book, about being attracted to low things and unconcerned about things that are better. And I think that distinction between better and worse, seriousness and unseriousness, just comes along with an apparatus of shame. And it's not, I think it's helpful to think about it in those terms. Mm-hmm.